live.
Woohoo, we're back.
We're back. We're back. Hello, everybody. Happy 2022. You know, I realized that when I was remaking that video, that my other production company was on there, so I'm going to have to change that. But nobody saw it. Anyway, welcome, everyone. Welcome 2022. Happy holidays, everyone. Happy New Year, all that other kind of good stuff and everything. Ralph, I'm so happy to see you. It seems like it's been ages.
It's funny because it was just the other day, but at the same time, it feels like it's been a long, long time.
Yeah, it does. And it's only been like literally 2 weeks.
That's
2 or
it.
3
It's
weeks.
only been 2 weeks, and it feels like it's been a long, long time.
Yeah, it does. It does. Well, what did you do for the holiday? How was it? What did you end up doing?
It was a lot of we're still dealing with the loss of the stepfather, so it's a lot of somberness and a lot of it's different, because I'm used to the holidays being a certain way, but with all this stuff that you're dealing with, you're like, okay, so it's a little different, but at the same time, it's still the holidays, it's still family getting together, so it was interesting, is all I can say.
Yeah. The sad thing about losing a parent and all the stuff that goes with it, especially around the holidays time and stuff, is that it's going to take a while, but you're going to have to learn how to start making your own memories.
Yeah.
There's nothing that can compare to their presence being with you during that time, but at least you could start continuing their traditions, talking about them and bringing up during the holidays and stuff like this, a day of remembrance, because yeah, I get it. I totally get it. Christmas and the holidays are not the same without my parents.
Oh.
And I don't know, 3 years ago, I lost my stepdad on Christmas Day. So, it's a totally different beast right now, but it is what it is, But was Santa good to you?
Santa's always good to me. I ended up with a bunch of writing stuff. I've been doing more of D&D, so I ended up with a bunch of new D&D books, so I can cause evil mischief to the people who are playing under me.
I thought about you the other day because at my job on every Friday, I have a group of people that we gather together to discuss television shows and things that we like. And right now we are on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And so we are on season 6 on Buffy, and I think season 2 or 3 with Angel. So we're doing Buffy. Yeah, we're doing both.
Okay.
Yeah, we're doing because you can't do one without the other because they intermingle with one another. But anyway, so there was a scene where Xander, they were looking for a big bad. They're always looking for a big bad, and Xander was talking about this particular monster that he thought existed, and somebody says, "You're not reading one of our reference books. You're reading a D&D manual."
Exactly.
And I started laughing because he's like, maybe it's this character right here. He's thinking, he's giving a description of what the character is. There are so many geek references in that show that I absolutely love.
Definitely. And if you're not paying attention, you'll miss them.
You'll miss them. And I think that when I first got introduced to Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I probably wasn't that immersed into the world of geekdom as I am now. So now it's not I'm understanding it, which was lost upon me before. Now I totally get it,
Oh, definitely.
And so,
it's one of those shows that if you're not really versed in geekdom, you'll miss a lot of stuff.
Yeah, definitely miss a lot of stuff. Well, I think I had a really good 2 weeks off. My job usually shuts down for 2 weeks during the holiday, so I to get some stuff done, and then before I go back into busydom, I got a lot of unpacking done. Yes, you all, I am still unpacking after moving into a house, but there's a lot of reasons why it took me a long time to pack, and we were talking about just the holidays and stuff like that. A lot of the things that I was unpacking were memories from my parents' home, my own personal memories that I had to go through. So it was very difficult to do it. I finally got enough strength to do it. I finally, actually I had a visitation from my mother. My mother told me. my mother told me to start unpacking my boxes because I had such beautiful things, and I do. You know, as a former flight attendant, I traveled the world. I collected stuff specifically to be in my house one day when I had a house. So it's time for me to start taking those things out. And so anyway, I have to tell you, the way that I felt unpacking and actually seeing space afterwards, I realized that my house is really pretty. My house is really pretty.
But you know how
before
it is. You're not going to know that until you actually start unpacking, putting things where they're supposed to be. Because then you go,
Exactly.
oh, this looks good.
It looks pretty. I know. And I was just really surprised. So it gave me a lot of momentum. And now every weekend I, dedicate, or maybe even one time, an hour to a day, even during a work day, I dedicate some time to start getting stuff done. So this green screen back here behind me is when I set this up for all of my auditions. This room is very small. I'm going to put it in a larger room now so that I can have all that, and we'll be back to my library in the background. And I also got some really nice gifts. I decided this year, instead of letting my husband try to figure out what he can get me, I actually made a list. And I got about 4 things on the list, one being an Oculus. I was very surprised about that. Yes. So I have not busted it open yet because I'm still setting up the room. You need space for that Oculus.
Oh, you definitely need space for that, because if you try to do it in a small room,
yeah, definitely. And I've seen, like, I've watched YouTube videos of people that like are walking back or walking in the middle of doing it and falling all over the place and stuff,
or run right into a wall.
Yeah, exactly. Run right into a wall. Exactly. So I'm setting up the room so I can actually get into the Oculus. I'm so very excited about this Oculus. So yeah, that I did that, and we did some other things, but I kind of wanted to this year go back and revisit some of the stuff that made the Bitten Apple who we are. And that's just us attending cons, which is something that we haven't been able to do in a very long time because of COVID,
like
and now Omicron, or as everybody's calling Omarion. So I thought it would be really good if we did a little segment where we go down memory lane and watch something that we did once before, have a little talk about that. And then we're going to introduce our guest for this evening and go into other little things that we did this holiday. All right, without further ado, let's get this going. Let me get everything set up for this. And
can't wait to see which flashback this is.
Oh, I'm not going to tell you.
Maybe you should figure out how to do the waves on the screen so that when the video pops up, it's like the flashback.
Like my flashback, we know. Well, I have a little something. So let's put that on right now.
Oh my God, BookCon.
Hey guys, this is Kat here from Bitten Apple TV. We're down here at Book Expo / BookCon because secretly I'm Belle without her beast, happily. But yeah, so let's just check out a couple of interviews. We did see some incredible stuff here, so let's check it out or read it out. Whatever, just roll with me.
Well, hello there, Apple Bites. This is Phil Tavares, your Apple Bite here, and we're going to be talking with
Rob Armstrong, author of Daddy 3.0, A Comedy of Errors.
I must say, we were passing by and it caught my attention completely, especially being a father myself. So, what made you write this book?
Well, I started being a stay-at-home dad around 2001, and so many funny things happened to me. I was like newer to it, didn't know anything about it. All the other moms kind of clucked at me, and so many funny things happened that, you know, after my kids got older, I'm like, yeah, you know, I'll put it into a fiction form, and it just kind of like came from there. It was really fun.
So, what would you say is your favorite daddy story?
My favorite daddy story. Well, my favorite daddy story is that in real life, I knew these twins and they'd only eat white food. And so literally this particular mom had to find like all different kinds of white food. And she found like 40 choices in what they would eat. And that's pretty impressive. So she'd run around New York to all these different stores and find this kind of fish and cauliflower and pasta. And it's just funny that that's all these kids ate for 6-7 months.
I have to admit, that is a funny story. Oh my God. So where can we find you?
So it's available on Amazon, and you can ask for it at your local bookstore.
I can see why you did this, because I have a 6-year-old now, and taking care of her has been interesting. Recently, I've ended up at home as well, so I can see what you're talking about, and it's just one thing after another.
Yeah, party. It's an adventure.
Oh, it definitely is. All right. So, this is Rafael Tavares signing off. Take a bite out of the apple.
Okay, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the few little interviews that we were able to do, because we actually were running around trying to actually get the book from Ryan Higa to get it signed. And that's just me personally as a fan, just wanted to get the book. But I wanted to do a couple of interviews because I saw this amazing independence that I wanted to check out. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Be sure to click subscribe, give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, give me a comment, give me something, baby. Come on. I'm busting my butt out here. But thank you so much. Bye.
Conventions.
What'd
We
you
meet so many
say?
interesting people. We have so
Yeah.
much fun at the conventions. We meet so many interesting people, you know, and we pick up a lot of these interesting books. And, you know, I feel like one of these days we're gonna have to sit there and like give people an idea of what we thought about these things.
Yeah, so we did say that we were going to do that, and we
Yeah.
have read 3 books. So I think that this year going forward, because we have so many books, we definitely need to do a quick review of everything that we've got. I've read so much lately that I think that might be a segment that we should start doing starting next week. We talk about what we thought about a particular book.
It
So
sounds good, yeah. And we can do a flashback and then go, okay, hey, so this
Yeah.
book was, yeah. You
So
know,
I think-
and you know, if you guys do want to pick something up, it's a pretty decent book. It's pretty funny. You know, it has to be with a name like Comedy of Errors.
well, now that you've done this, tell us what you thought about that book.
It's a blast. It's something, you know, to pick up and check out and, you know, have a little bit of fun with, you know, because it's been a while since I read it, but it was a lot of fun to go through, and it wasn't like your normal or everyday kind of book. It actually it's a bit different than what you're used to reading, so you might want to come pick it up, especially if you're a father.
Okay, and our author who wrote that book again is Mr. Armstrong.
It's Rob Armstrong. There you go.
Let me pull you up and so people can see this.
Rob Armstrong. There you go. And yeah, check it out. You know, give it a read. Let me know what you think about this book.
All right. So now that we know that, let's check out Daddy 3.0. I think Ralph gives it a thumbs up. He thinks it's very funny for stay-at-home dads to look at it and see what it's like to be in a whole different scenario than they're probably used to.
Right.
So he gives it a thumbs up. And thank you, Mr. Armstrong, for the interview that we did in 2017 with you. We would love to reconnect with you and see what's going on.
Yeah.
So you might hear from us.
And like Kadma said, you know, there's the Ryan Higa book up there. You know, because we had gone to the convention to right there. You know, to like, meet Ryan Higa, and we actually took pictures with him and got the book signed.
Where is he now, by the way?
It's so funny. I was actually talking to Kadma the other day. I think he's not doing as many videos as he used to, you know, but I think he's still there. Hey, son of Saint.
Yeah, if you all don't know who Ryan Higa is, Ryan Higa was a YouTube phenomenon before, people started blowing up on YouTube.
Exactly.
He was one of the first, was like a progenitor, and he used to do a lot of content about his family because he's of Asian descent. And so he used to talk about that, do scenarios. I mean, he was a lot of fun. I would really highly suggest.
His skits were hilarious.
His skits were hilarious. So I would highly recommend you go and check out Ryan Higa's stuff. Because that's someone that you could take a note out of his page.
Oh, definitely.
For his success rate that he had. But he
was. If you're looking for ideas on how to run your social media career, Ryan Higa's a good place to go. When we were watching him and Superwoman for a while, Lily, and it was an interesting time, because it was different. You didn't have so many people vying for these positions.
Right. It was when it was before it became what it is now. Now it's a pretty flooded market, but this was before everything. So he was like he grandfather ushered in a lot of people into being YouTube sensations and influencers. So let's go up. We have a lot to talk about, but before we do anything, I just want to bring in our guest for this evening. Let me pull up his picture because I just want to talk about him. I didn't put it in a presentation, but I just want to do it.
Yeah, because he has all that COVID growth now.
Yeah, exactly. You can see the difference. Let's pull this up. All right. So, who is this distinguished gentleman here? You all, this is Mr. Tom TRUELOVE. He's a public speaker at genre conventions, including New York Comic Con and Dragon Con. He is also an author, an artist, and a DJ. He's a man for all seasons, literally. He's been developing 4 role-playing game shared anthology settings for Red Duke Games, the creators of the best-selling Necronomicon cookbook. He is the business partner of Lena Renee Hyber, or is it Hyber?
Yeah.
And they are the co-creators of the Time Immemorial trilogy, available on Scribd.com, which is SCRIBD.com. And Tom says he draws inspiration from Greek mythology, esoterica, and science fiction for most of his projects. He is totally up our alley, and I'm loving every bit of that. Without further ado, you all, let's bring him in, Mr. Tom TRUELOVE. Hey, Tom.
Hello, how are you?
Hi. Thank you for being with us. Let me take this brand down real quick. Nice to meet you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much. It's nice to meet you, and Happy New Year.
And Happy New Year. So we were talking about the COVID growth. We see that you've got a little bit, you got going on a little bit.
When this was about here, someone on the street said, "It's time to get a haircut." And I'm like, okay, you tell me where that's safe to do.
It wasn't safe to do for a long time.
I respect barbers. I consider it an art, something I'm not going to do myself. But it's also not necessarily the safest place to spend half an hour during a pandemic.
That's true.
So I think I'll just wait.
Yeah. Do you know, when I went to go get my haircut, and now I haven't gone to get my haircut in a long time, but they actually have a machine right there that takes your temperature before you even step a foot into the door. You have to get your temperature taken, and then you have to write your name down that day that you were there along with your temperature, because for some reason, if somebody was asymptomatic and didn't have COVID, now we all know who was there that day.
Oh, all right.
So that they can tell you.
Contact tracing.
Yes. I mean, it's really sophisticated. At first, I was a little taken aback when I went there, and they were like, "Oh no, you got to take a temperature before you come in here." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And so I just put my head up to some little thing, and it took my temperature, and then that was it. Of course, you're also wearing masks throughout the whole, process and everything, but it was very interesting. It's a whole different world now,
If I let this go and grow the beard a bit more, I'm starting to look like a Lord of the Rings character.
I know what you mean.
Yeah. Do not pass. So tell us a little bit about what you do. This is very interesting. So you're very unique. You have so many creative things that you have your hands in. Let's start first with your writing.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, first, let me say I used to work in a corporate environment and eventually realized this is not working for me. So I started to do, I felt I needed to do creative endeavors. In terms of writing, I try to find ideas that I haven't experienced before, something that like I haven't seen or would like to see. And I'll do a little research to see, am I correct? Does this in fact not exist? And then I'll pursue that. I'll give you an example from Greek mythology. I have never seen, particularly not in comic books, someone examining the fact that Hercules, his great-great-grandfather, was the king of Ethiopia. That means Hercules is about 12.5% black. Never seen that before.
Isn't that interesting?
I love that.
Well,
Professor Xavier from the X-Men. Xavier is actually Javier, which is a Spanish name. Why is Professor Xavier not Latinx? Those kinds of that kind of approach. It's not all about ethnicity, but those kinds of things I have not seen in comics. I have not seen explored in fandom in any regard. And you don't need to invent peculiar new ways to reimagine a character when it's right there.
Makes sense.
It's very interesting that you're saying this, because in high school I went through this whole thing where Greek mythology was just I would eat it every day. I mean, I would read everything about Greek mythology. I loved Greek mythology. And I have a belief that let's talk about your origin, for instance. I have this strong belief that your DNA has memory. And so there are things that you're attracted to, but you don't know why you're attracted to them. But I believe that is genetic memory. So what I have found out by doing my DNA research is that I have Greek heritage. Now, the interesting thing is my fascination with that. Why was I so fascinated in that period of time in my life, you know? And I was very surprised to find out that we had Greek heritage, enough to show up in a DNA test. So interesting too is that area, all of Greek, all of Turkey, all of those areas over there that we call, there's a name for it. Those people are of dark skin. They have dark skin, or at least some melanated skin.
Exactly.
You know, and it was common for people to intermingle with one another without it being, let's say, whitewashed, because it has been whitewashed. What we have seen, what we have experienced was from the perspective of people who felt that that was better. However, I can guarantee you that Greeks who have these gods made them of color, because Greeks were of color. They were not these Greeks that we see on television. They were not the Greeks that we may know as family members or friends or whatever. They were of a darker skin tone, you know. Now, maybe not to the extent of someone who is from Africa per se, or maybe Ethiopian for that matter, but they still were of melanated tone.
Exactly.
And the truth, that is the most fascinating truth I ever heard, because I'm going to tell you, as much as I've read Greek history, I never knew that about Hercules.
It's one of the things that like people just take at face value about Hercules, the presentation, like in the Disney animated musical. And when I was watching it, I thought the chorus is 5 black women. The musical choice is unusual. And then I put it together with this, okay, Hercules is part Ethiopian. It makes more sense now.
Yeah, but of course they didn't darken his skin. But think about it. We think about people from ancient Phoenicia. Those people were of all different skin tones.
Yep.
You
The
know,
Greek
and
alphabet derives from the Phoenician alphabet.
mhm.
The tin trade all through the Mediterranean meant that you were stopping if you started in the Phoenician region, stopping in Greece and what is now Italy, went all the way to England, particularly the Cornish area, because that's where they found quite a bit of tin. This was a very, very long time ago, about 900 BC or thereabouts. I think probably 80. Anyway, quite a long time ago. And no one goes thousands of miles just to dig up tin and doesn't interact with the people while they're there. And that's not something you do in an hour. That's something you do over months.
Yep.
So there was a cultural exchange. There was the time for Phoenicians to meet Cornish people, interact, share mythology, maybe share some DNA, and then go back home with the tin.
Yeah. You know, it's funny you were talking about this because I can have long discussions about this. On Wednesday night, I host a show of it tells about indigenous culture and stuff like that. And we do what we call a fireside chat. And the elder, that's the show, he's of Native American heritage or indigenous heritage. He told us that the ancient Phoenicians, who were seafaring people, just like the Greeks, had visited what we call Turtle Island 50,000 years ago and intermingled with the people here that we know as indigenous people of America. 50,000 years ago, they were crossing that landmass or the lack thereof, because we might have been a little bit closer, intermingling with people. So that's to say, those are trips that took a very long time. There's no way they just decided they were going to go back in an hour. They stayed.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Same with the Mali Empire. The Mali Empire discovered certain areas of South America and stayed and intermingled with people, as well as North America. But I think it's really sad that we don't know this culture and it's not shared in our history books unless we take it as an elective course, that we know these things. But we are people of mixed heritage.
Yeah.
There is the concept of racism per se, or the concept of race is a new concept. Before, you were known by the people that you came from.
Yep.
The origin or not anything else. So this is very interesting, and I love that you research that and you go into that and write about those things.
Right. You mentioned that you feel that DNA carries memory.
Mm-hmm.
I am not a geneticist. I can't say that it does. I can't say that it doesn't. But are you familiar with the word anamnesis?
No, what does that mean?
It means what you, quote unquote, learn in this life is actually you're being reminded of what you knew in a past life.
Life, yes.
First of all, it's not a word invented by game producers like retrocognition. It's actually a legitimate ancient word. And I'll follow up in chat, or I can just do it here. If it will let me, never mind. I'll follow it up in chat with the spelling. It's anamnesis.
Anamnesis, that's interesting. I'm going to look this up.
Yeah. Chat me after, or I'll provide a link. And you mentioned also your ancestry. I'm going to presume, because of the Gandalf thing going on here, that like most people will assume that I'm a white guy. I'm 25% Asian.
Yeah.
Which you don't know until I tell you. But now, now you know what to look. Now you can see it.
Mm-hmm.
And
is that Eastern Asia, or is that
it's
Asia?
Indonesia?
Okay.
And most people do not ever notice.
Yeah.
Other people of color notice this.
I was about to say the same thing, because this is the same conversation I have with Kadma all the time, because Kadma is a percentage Asian, and I can see it right away. I also can see her percentage of Native American, And it's funny because she always tells me, no, people don't see this thing, and I'm like, but I saw
No,
it right away.
we're conditioned because we're conditioned by the concept of race.
Mm-hmm.
We're
Right.
conditioned to look at a phenotype. We're not conditioned to look at origin or people or
Right.
nation. We're not. And it's sad because by doing that, you're eliminating a past.
Yeah.
You're basically eliminating a connection to a people that you could have. So that there's so many people out there that are lost because they don't know who they are, especially people of color. And so if knowing this and reconnecting with your people, there's something that you can research. There's something that you can, reimagine or reconnect with, and that's exhilarating and it's freeing. It's not bound by color. It's not bound by a socioeconomic status because of color or race. It is beyond that, But I think that the reason why the concept of race was initiated was because of control, and it was to make sure that people of a fairer skin tone were made sure that they were of all at the top of the food chain, and everybody else was below that. So it's sad, but once you find out who you are, it explains a lot of things about you as a person.
Well, I think it also serves to give a foundation.
Mm-hmm.
If you can comfortably stand on it.
Right. Definitely. I know there's a lot of people that have an aversion to take a DNA test, but I have to tell you, at this point, if you feel like the government is taking your DNA and making a clone out of you, well, gosh, that's the best form of flattery. And second of all, the thing is that you will find who your people are, and you'd be surprised the lineage that you find. Just like this, the Greek, I had no idea that we had Greek heritage.
Right. I have a kit. I haven't turned it in yet, but not because I think, like somebody's going to do something peculiar with my DNA. Fine, have that. Yeah. I have a twin brother. I know what that's going to turn out.
I think you should. I highly encourage that you do it, because you might discover some things that you just, and they keep refining it. So the more they refine it, the more you discover. So the Greek heritage did not show up in my initial DNA test with Ancestry.com. It just recently showed up.
I'm not expecting to find Greek in mine, but I might be surprised the same way you were.
Yep, I was very surprised. Very surprised. So, hey, Andrew Frank, how are you?
Yeah, Andrew's a blast, and look, he loves his DNA test.
Yeah. I mean, it's very interesting what you find out, but I like the concept of past life. I remember once that I went to I think it was just a metaphysical type of place in Manhattan, where it was an elder, a Native American elder, who explained what he thought past lives was. And that's where I came up with the concept of it being a genetic memory somewhere down there.
It's possible, and I'm not sure that the word anamnesis doesn't also fit with that. Mm-hmm. There are a couple other definitions of it. I feel as though once you've gained a certain amount of familiarity and comfort with the word, you can use it to explain the affinities that you need an explanation for without using a game word.
Wow, I love that. So
I put it in the private chat.
Okay, let me share it with everybody, this word.
Oh, there it goes. I was wondering how it was spelled.
I'm gonna share this with everybody in the comments so that you can look up the word yourself. But I think that it is very freeing to find out anything, even just this history that you told us about Hercules per se.
Yeah.
It's just fascinating.
He more black than 12.5%, depending on the ancestors of his that don't have exactly what ethnicity is a river spirit. Once you get out of human, you're into okay, now I don't even know what to call this.
Yeah. And I think that that's the thing. I think that from an ancient perspective, if you looked at it from an ancient analogy, nobody called it an ethnicity, because like I said, the concept of race is new. So you called it by its people, or you called it by its origin,
I have a chart of the ancestry of Hercules going farther back than Ethiopia. It does eventually reach Egypt and the Phoenician territories. And then it gets into immortal creatures that are not human, and then at that point you need to stop.
I'm fascinated by that.
I will share it later. Just chat me later.
Okay, I will. All right. So then you did this work as an author, and you've been working on the Necronomicon as well. The
Necronom Nom Nom.
Not Necronom Nom Nom.
Cthulhu-based cookbook. I'm working with the people who did make it. I had nothing to do with the cookbook. But the Necronom Nom Nom is a beautiful actual cookbook. You can actually, make food from the recipes. Some of them are quite good. I haven't tried all of them. I should mention that it is also filled with incredibly bad puns.
Well, just the nom nom nom
nom nom nom nom. Yes.
They've recently released a cocktail book, 2 card games, one for kids, one not,
Ooh.
and an unusual diagonal strategy board game.
Wow.
What I'm working on, Red Duke Games with, and their website is reddukegames.com. I'm working on a modern retelling and reimagining of the Ars Goetia, which was a mid-1500s tome of magic that dealt with 72, I'm going to call them spirits, other people might use a different word, that King Solomon bound through magical means to help build the original temple.
I remember the story, yeah.
Which is truth, by the way, you all. So let's go ahead and discuss this, and let's discuss the whole thing of King Solomon and the demons.
Oh, so you are familiar.
I'm very familiar with this.
Well, there are 72. They have angelic counterparts. Once we launch the Kickstarter, if we do very well, we are doing 3 books, not just 1.
Nice.
And it's not presented as a tome of magic. I'm Gandalf notwithstanding, I'm not a wizard. So I'm not going to actually present a grimoire for the use of people who have need of them. But I think it is worth noting that in the 1500s, these characters were presented as what you should be cautious about.
Yeah.
What interaction you might have with these spirits, and what do we want to say that? And they were described to be things that people of the 1500s would find frightening then. That's a very different kind of reaction now. So what forms might they take now? And what would be the hypothetical utility of interacting with them in the 21st century?
Very interesting.
That's interesting. I like that concept. I like
that concept
into the modern times, trying to figure out what it would be now. Yeah.
Well, you also wove in truth with a little bit of the fantasy or the concept of visualizing it, because for those of you who don't know about this, King Solomon, who was granted wisdom by God, also built the temple in shorter time than normal. He built this big temple to the Lord that was just phenomenal, had everything in it. And it is said in the, I would say, the Kabbalah and some of the other, mystical arts of Jewish faith, that he was given a ring, and through this ring, he was able to command demons to build this temple, so that the temple was built by demons, and he had control of demons. Along with the wisdom that God gave him, he had the control of demons. So, yeah. Yes, the Book of Solomon was one of the craziest stories I heard growing up in Catholic education. Yes, very true. It's very true.
I agree with him.
He was also
When I
a
was
lover of
Catholic
women.
and they told me this story, and I was like, okay.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how you can't have one without the other, a God without demons. It just doesn't make any sense. So, but yeah, Solomon had control over all of those things.
I'm completely surprised and delighted that both of you are already familiar with this.
Well, I am fascinated by things of the occult and of also things that are spiritual, biblical, and of God. So this story I'm very familiar with.
The second and third books that go in this, if it funds well, if it only funds enough, we're doing just the demons. If it funds well, we're going to do a second book with the angels, and then there's a third book of the angels of the abyss, which are trickier, but it's all going to be like hypothetically, what does it mean to interact with these now?
Right.
Not in 1550.
And no, these demons were all once angels.
Yep.
Correct. And I have a if the book, once it's funded, if it sells well, we're following it up with a role-playing game that
it sounds like you need to.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's intriguing.
And there's an interesting, unusual take about like, well, what does that mean? Are they evil? No, not necessarily. And they'll happily tell you why you've been wrong. But that's in the role-playing setting.
Nice. I think that what we call Nephilim or fallen angels or whatever, not all of them are evil. I don't know if I think that they might be misguided, but not all of them are evil. These are angels that actually fell in love with women. So if they knew love, then they must know right from wrong. And so I don't think it's necessarily so. I think they get a bad rap. I don't know if I won't find that out until I leave this earth and have a conversation at the feet of Jesus. But I'm just saying that, the concepts of what we know as these, there are dark entities, but not all of the angels were bad. They just were humanness.
And I'm just going to pause and say, just remember that dark doesn't necessarily mean bad.
True.
So you know that the famous description of the sign at the entrance to the underworld is "Abandon hope, all ye who enter here."
Yeah.
In the role-playing game that comes after this art and speculation, the sign on the way going out, so that the demons would be seeing when they're coming up to this world, is, hey, remember they're all crazy.
Oh, that's a perfect sign.
Every time I think about that phrase, "Abandon hope, all ye who enter here," I think about one of my favorite movies called The Sentinel, that was filmed in Brooklyn.
I have not seen that.
Oh, for shame. You should see it. Tom. It was made in the 70s. It stars Christopher Sarandon, Jeff Goldblum. Oh my gosh, so many appearances of people who became famous after this, but it might have been one of their first films. But I can give you like a little synopsis. It's about a young model who wants to get out on her own and finds an apartment complex that is rented to her by none other than famous actress. I can't think of her name right now. It escapes me. And there's an old priest that lives upstairs. That's a blind man who sits facing out, looking over the Hudson River, I believe. Okay. And so she's fascinated by this thing, and this man who's up there in this window. And so she she meets these strange people in her apartment complex, while she's there. And I'm not going to tell you anything else, but I'm just going to tell you it is one of the best movies that I have ever seen, and one of my top favorite horror films of all time.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So
I have a tricky relationship with horror because I'm epileptic, and it means the way that I neurologically perceive the world is a little bit different than people who aren't epileptic.
Right.
It also means that horror is I'm as susceptible to suspense as anybody else.
Yeah.
But horror, I have not seen something that frightens me.
Okay. Well, I'm curious to see what you think about this particular film.
Yeah, we'll follow up on that.
But it is one of my favorites. I wouldn't say, in my opinion, I think when I first saw it, it was scary to me. But now I have a whole different concept of it. But I will tell you, it's a very good film. And you're going to see a lot of cameos in it of people that are now famous. You're going to be like, oh my gosh, picking them out. All these actors were living in New York City trying to make it at that time. I ended up getting up in this film. So it's really good. I will tell you a funny incident about that, and then we can go on. The house that is used in this film, I happened to be going to Brooklyn one day to visit somebody, and I got lost and found myself at the cul-de-sac where this house was, and looked up and went, oh my gosh, and freaked out. Totally not expecting this house there. It just completely freaked me out. Nothing about it was changed. It was still the apartment that they modernized it. I tell you, it was just, you know what? It was one of those moments where I was like, I can't believe that I live in New York. As a girl from Missouri, I can't believe I live in New York City. So you have you are you do D&D, and both of you all are big D&D players. Tell us a little bit about how that also influences what you do. And also, very quickly, tell us about you being a DJ.
Okay, I'll do the DJ thing first.
Okay.
I like crafting emotional tonescapes. I know that sounds pretentious, but all DJs are. When I used to DJ weekly for a goth show in Philadelphia. And after a while, I realized that I could kind of tell what specific booze we needed at the bar based on how people walked in.
Wow.
My assumption about the kind of show people are out for stems from, you're familiar with the science fiction author Spider Robinson?
Yes.
He said in, I forget which book, there are 3 emotions: glad, sad, and mad. And that's an oversimplification, but if you're DJing, you don't need like a doctoral thesis to understand the emotional state of your audience. It's sufficient to boil it down to those 3. Which one are they? And remember that I as a DJ cannot make you happy. I can't make you I can't give you a good time. I'm an illusionist. I can create the illusion that that you're having a good time, so that if you came into the bar mad or sad, you can potentially leave closer to glad. That's my DJ experience.
Nice.
Thank you.
I like that.
What was the other question?
So, but before you move on about D&D, do you have? You just said something that just totally blew my mind, that you were a goth DJ. So,
why did that blow your mind?
Well, I just want to know who artist-wise was your favorite as far as playing for goth music.
I like If Only Tonight We Could Sleep by The Cure.
Mm-hmm.
I like the entire album Exile by Gary Newman.
Yeah.
I think that almost every song that from Depeche Mode that has hit the charts is worth listening to.
Makes sense.
Susie and the Banshees is worth a mention. Just start there. I recently did this musical experiment. If the only songs for a set you can pick are from a single year, it has to have been out like in just that year. what can you put a good set together? And I got to say, the year 1983 is a fantastic year to do that with.
1983. Wow. I can remember where I was in 1983. Listening to all that music, by the way, listening to all that music. And then up into the 90s, listening to grunge and alternative, which, completely has I don't know, there's something about the tonality of that music that appeals to me. So I love that music,
And I used to think that, like, well, let me also say this. Most goth music is synth driven.
Mm-hmm.
Almost all funk is bass driven.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That means you can do both at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Why is no one doing that?
That's true.
Well, there are. Let me just say this. There
Send
are
me a list
artists
of
out there.
people.
There are some artists out there that do something that is unique. So there's an artist that my husband introduced me to. My husband is in a rock band. He's a bass player in a heavy metal band. He introduced me to an artist who does funk rock and also uses that. I don't know what this thing is, but it's a thing that they used to use in horror movies where it goes, ooh, with that. Yes, the theremin. He uses all of that in music. I
want Parliament and Depeche Mode to team up.
Oh, I would love to hear that. I would love to hear that. But there are artists out there that do that. There is a niche group of people out there that combine, genres that you would think are that would not meld to one another together. Interestingly enough, what we listen to as rock music and stuff like that, a lot of that has a basis in what I would call classical music. They're
Sure.
very well trained. There's a lot of classical music in a lot of what we hear, but we don't hear it because we're listening to the guitars and stuff like that. So there is a mix of genres in whoever the artist is because they listen to so many stuff. And I think because we just classify it as rock, that's all we see it as. But it means so it's mixed with so much more.
Exactly. You see it all the time. Like when Evanescence came out, people were like so shocked about it. But I'm like, no, this makes total sense to me because I knew that you had all these classically trained musicians that were playing rock and roll, and you're like, why don't you know this? Why? They're if you're listening to the music, if you're listening to how it's being broken down, you can actually hear it in it.
You can hear the tonality of
exactly.
it. You're right, Andrew. I'm looking for that. I'm looking for that.
Depeche Mode team up would bring new fans.
Yep, it would. It definitely would. I think it would. I just think that people are just not down with, they don't, or they haven't found each other to actually come on stage and actually do something together. But hey, maybe we started something here this evening.
Start pushing buttons.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk briefly before we go in, because we wanted to open up our box from Fandome. Let's talk briefly about you and D&D. Both of you are lovers of D&D. I have not ever embraced D&D. I don't know very much about it, but just tell me how that has influenced a lot of your writing, or if you found yourself in D&D and that's why you love it so much.
I don't know that I can say I found myself in Dungeons and Dragons. I found myself in Star Trek. I don't know if you can tell, I'm sort of the Vulcan.
Yeah, I already saw the eyebrow thing. I was like, I see some Spock there.
But as far as Dungeons and Dragons goes, it was the first game that I was introduced to that was very flexible about rules. I started playing Dungeons and Dragons in 1979. Yes, I'm an old person. Every game prior to that was you could open the box, and on the inside of the box lid, the rules were there, and so you knew when someone was cheating. In Dungeons and Dragons, it's not like that. So why would you write that way? When you are presenting a fictional universe, you do need to be consistent about the rules you decide are in play. So your readers aren't struck by something out of left field. And my business partner, Leanna Renee Heber, speaks about this at conventions frequently, reminding people that they need to be consistent so the readers will understand what's happening. But apart from that, you can depart from the rules you are deciding not to make part of your universe. Dungeons and Dragons, I think, opened the door to that kind of approach to storytelling.
It's funny because I recently I've been trying to explain writing to certain people, and one of the things I've been doing is take the player's guide and explain how you create your character in Dungeons and Dragons, and from that it's the whole concept of this is writing. You're creating your character, you're creating a story that you're going to play in another story, but it's a nice beginning for you, especially if you're learning how to write, on how to create these characters that are going to be in your books. So I started on TikTok going, all right, look, let's break this down. Here's the player's guide. What you're doing is you're creating this character, and this character is part of another universe. Now, because of that, you're learning to write in these set rules that are already set there for you, that you don't have to set up automatically. So it gives you a chance to play in a sandbox before you create your own sandbox.
So you gave them literally a universe. They're within a universe that are governed by laws, and by that, then the character has to be within this universe. The origin of this has already been there for you. So, now you said that you are a Star Trek fan. What do you think about Discovery?
I tried watching Discovery. I wanted to like it. I decided I am not the intended audience.
No.
I like that how you said that. I like how you said that.
It doesn't mean that the Star Trek that I grew up on is any less valid. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that the people who like Discovery are out of their minds.
Exactly.
It means they are fans of a show that's different from what I consider Star Trek. Mm-hmm. If somebody approaches me and says, what do you want to do with Star Trek? I have some ideas. I think some of them are going to get me threatening letters, but I think it is logical, internally consistent, and entertaining. And the next time we're in person, stop me and ask me. I'll tell you why I think I might get threatening letters based on the stories I would tell in the Star Trek universe.
I have to tell you that
because there's an animated series that Star Trek is doing now, and I got to see an episode of it, and it was interesting. And Janeway is, a construct of Janeway's in it.
What's it called? What's it called?
I forget what it's called.
Prodigy.
Star Trek Prodigy. And this is an animated series, and it's this crew of aliens from all over, and they steal the starship, and Janeway is the construct on the starship, just like the Doctor was on
Voyager, yes.
Yeah. And it's an interesting concept, and now she's teaching these kids to be Starfleet because they're not Starfleet.
But they stole the ship.
They stole the ship from a bad guy.
Oh, okay.
Star Trek is one of the points of inspiration Leanna Heber and I used to create Time Immemorial, which is a trilogy that you mentioned in the introduction on Scribed. There's some debate on how that's pronounced.
I don't know. Maybe it is scribed because of writing.
I have no idea. I've heard people who work there call it scribed. Or I'm not sure. But Time Immemorial is about a woman who's simultaneously living 5 lives. And there are people in each of them who would rather she stop doing that. That was based on something we were intending to present, or parts of that were based on something we were intending to present as a pitch for Star Trek. And
wow, because that's literally kind of what Picard did, though. He was living 2 lives in 2 different time universes.
For that episode, yeah.
Yeah, for that episode.
Oh, the inner life.
Yeah. That's
I don't
interesting.
think I was thinking of that when we came up with that.
That's
Well, your
wow.
concept is a bit different now because you have 5 of these things happening at the same time.
Right.
That sounds complicated enough as.
I'm sure it would be difficult to live that way.
Can you imagine?
But I would love it. I think it would be fascinating.
Well, you
know?
can read it over at Scribed.
Okay, I'm definitely going to be reading that. One more thing that I'm going to have to review. Now, out of all the Star Trek franchises, which was your favorite? And you can't say the original because that's everybody's favorite.
Okay. I think Deep Space Nine was probably the best,
Yes!
particularly after third season, because it was a little more real, particularly when they let Avery Brooks be not
Avery Brooks.
Right, when they let him open up.
Avery Brooks, yeah.
There's an episode where he's doing a lot of direct address while he's recording a personal log about a couple weeks where he has to break a lot of rules and maybe some laws, and then at the end, spoilers, he has to say he's asking himself the question, can I live with all of this? And he says, yes I can delete the log. And so it's officially in the Star Trek universe not part of history.
Yeah.
But it's an excellent episode. So is the one where they reimagine the entire cast as the writers for a pulp magazine.
Yes, a sci-fi magazine in the 40s where nobody was taking him seriously as a black man writing for a sci-fi book.
Completely brilliant.
Let me tell you something. By far, now I just totally love you, Tom, True Love, because that is my favorite Star Trek outside of the original. When that finally went off the air, I cried like a baby for 3 days. I literally cried like a baby. And let me just say why. Avery Brooks as a father was a prime example of every father that every child should have. And I missed him as a father. To me, one of my favorite episodes is Father's Day, where his son and I can't think of the names right now because I'm actually hungry. His little Ferengi friend, were getting him a ball signed by Jackie Robinson, and they had to do some little dealings in order to get everything for this ball to give his dad on Father's Day. One of the best episodes I have ever seen. And Avery Brooks, I know, struggled a little bit because they were not writing this character as a true man who had lived a Black experience. And when he took control of that, when they finally allowed him to play that role as a man who's living the Black experience, it changed the dynamic of that show. And by far, one of my best favorite shows, all of the relationships that happened there, everything. Just an amazing show.
Have you seen the documentary called What We Left Behind about Deep Space Nine?
I have not.
It will make you cry again. It will inform you of a lot of the background of the show that you already love. And the 5 of the people who wrote the series imagine what the next season would be if they got a chance to do it again.
Nice.
Oh my gosh. If they had an opportunity to recreate that show, to further it, to see it, what happens after everything, after he becomes the emissary, after all of that, I want to be there and I want to be in that show. I'm claiming it right now. I want to be in that show as an actor. I'm telling you, I absolutely adored that show. And so it just, I heard that let me tell you what I love about Avery Brooks. He is a professor at Rutgers. And they said that he would actually teach class while he was on set in his captain's uniform.
Oh, fantastic. Cool. That's interesting. I did not know he was a professor.
Yeah, he's a professor at Rutgers. And his wife also has something to do with Rutgers.
Okay.
But yes, he used to do virtual class, and he used to be in his captain's uniform. That to me is just
That's just amazing.
yeah.
No, I think easily Deep Space Nine is probably from evaluated as a complete series the most consistently good. Next Generation took a little time figuring out what it was.
Yeah.
The original series is, let's be honest, very old, and a lot of the episodes do not hold up.
No.
Voyager, I wanted to be excellent, and they like, okay, we have a female captain finally, yay, great, because one of the original series episodes said that we specifically were never going to see that, and then they put her in a place where, okay, you're a captain, but you have no other interaction with anything else that makes anything Starfleet, Star Trek, or dealing with Klingons.
Yeah, you threw them all the way out there.
It's completely separated. It's severed from what makes something Star Trek. And Enterprise was trying.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I think we need to take a page from those who are creating shows like, the shows like Boba Fett and The Mandalorian. We need to have fans be the directors and the writers of that content.
I will volunteer. Give me a crew and a budget, and let me reinvent Vulcan for you, and I will happily do that.
Yeah, I have to tell you, that's what we need. Well, I will say this about Star Trek, the old series. As a child growing up and watching it, it expanded my mind. It expanded my mind to see a Black woman up on the captain's deck. It expanded my mind to love anything that was sci-fi and to be the person that I am. That and Lost in Space, because I absolutely loved Lost in Space. It just made me realize that there was something beyond growing up, the limitations of growing up as a child in the 60s. And I can imagine a bigger world than what I was living in. So I applaud that, everything about Star Trek. And I consume anything that has to do with sci-fi and a futuristic, utopia where people don't care about color. People don't care about your sexual orientation. People don't care if you have interracial relationships with an alien, or for that matter, somebody of a different race. It just is where I would want to be. And it took the mind of a child and made me realize that there had to be something bigger than that. So that's what it accomplished. And it's, brief 2 or 3 seasons that it was on the air.
I think I grew up on it. I mean, it was on. My mother watched it even before I could understand it. So it's been on the screen almost my whole life. And I think it's one of the reasons why I find it a little easier than maybe other people do to manufacture hope.
Yeah.
I completely agree. It was funny because when I was younger and watching the show, you saw Chekhov, you saw Sulu, you saw Uhura, and it was a bunch of different races all together with this constant hope that Gene Roddenberry would put up there, because he saw this future in a more hopeful way. And I think that's the difference between Star Wars and Star Trek, is that in Star Trek you have this hope that's constantly there. In Star Wars, you're trying to get there. You're trying to make it to that hope. But Star Trek already has it there, and they're trying to keep it.
I love what Andrew said. I would love the social maturity that we see on Star Trek. I think that will only come when we all realize that we're human beings. And maybe that might be the introduction of some other people that come here making us realize that. But we have to realize that we're all human beings.
And I think that the definition of what is human has to be much broader than it is right now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I've been trying to remind myself, if I'm at odds with someone, and I do not want to jump to the conclusion this person is evil or crazy or stupid. Why, without imagining those things, to do the mental exercise to try to figure out how they got there, how did they wind up standing on the position they're on, because it probably to them doesn't seem to be evil, crazy, or stupid. And just earlier this week, I was like, I think I need to add misinformed to that as well. After I've spent the time not assuming those 4 things about them, maybe then I can ask, what does this mean and why are you there? In an unchallenging way, and one that respects that their definition of human might be different from mine, but in conjunction, it's a broader definition. I think that might be how we get to Star Trek.
Yeah. Well, I think too, people don't imagine that there's a world bigger than just what their myopic view of themselves.
Right.
That there's a whole different world out there. When you think about it as a whole, the majority of people, especially in America, have never traveled outside of America. For that matter, never traveled outside of their own state.
Yeah.
But if they get out there to see the world, then they can imagine a different world. If they get out there and experience other cultures, they can imagine a different culture. It starts changing your mindset, your concept about how people live elsewhere, how people survive elsewhere. I think that that's the best thing to do is 1, learn another language, maybe 2 or 3, and go and travel the world and see what's out there and experience life outside of America. Because this is not it, you all. This is not the only place in the world.
I've lived in 3 states, and so you don't have to go very far to get that somewhat different take on the day to day. Like that. I've lived in New Jersey longer than I wanted to. I've lived in Pennsylvania. Very different. So maybe try Washington State, or and. The only other country other than America I've been to, Canada doesn't count because I walked across the border and I was only there for an hour. It is Italy. Very different experience.
Yeah,
I do not speak the language. I could happily live there.
Yeah. But it's different. I think that that's an experience that everybody should have. Look beyond just yourself. Look beyond just your the country that you live in or the state that you live in. Go out and explore the world.
Right.
Definitely.
I also think a level of comfort of you're making decisions that are different from the ones that I think I would make in those same circumstances without necessarily understanding what those circumstances are. And that's a challenge to me. Exactly why. A lot of the differences in how we choose to live our lives are not that big.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. Definitely, I agree with you on that.
And just accept that all of the things, I'm doing what I can to get to the next day is valid if you get there.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially now.
Right?
Yeah, especially now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Particularly now.
Well, thank you so much, Tom. This has been just an experience, and I definitely have to come. Well, I definitely love to talk to you even further than that, have you come back and talk more about this, because obviously we all love the same thing, and this is a meeting. This is a love fest right here because we love everything. We could spend hours talking. I literally could spend hours talking about this content.
Mythology, Star Trek,
D&D, everything. All of those things. Honestly, and horror. We have to talk about that. But we have to get into, because we promised everybody that we were going to look into the Fandome box so that we can see what's in there before we leave today. So, as you all know, I signed up for a DC Fandome.
So there are not going to be Marvel spoilers in this.
No Marvel spoilers in this. We're going to have to talk about Marvel stuff next week. But I received this box once I signed up for Fandome. And I haven't fully looked in the box. I did look in the box at first, and I was like, oh, but we have to do this reveal on on Bitten Apple. So let me tell you what's in this box. I'm going to pull some things out. They really did well with this Fandome box. You know,
Well, DC's been doing very well with the whole fandom in general.
Yes.
I feel like it's one of the better ideas because, you know, they've been losing people before this. Now with the fandom, you're starting to feel like you're part of this DC community.
Mm-hmm. And not only that, you know, their content is getting better, but I think that has a lot to do with their new Warner Media's new CEO. And he is also a fan of this kind of genre. So he knows what people are going to love. And just a full disclosure here, I work for a tech company that got purchased by AT&T, and Warner Media was also purchased by AT&T. And so we all intermingled together. Now, this Fandome box was given to anybody who signed up for Fandome, but I knew about it before it came out to the public, so I went ahead and signed up for it. But when I tell you that this guy is on the mark about stuff, I received from him for Christmas a blanket that was so soft. He gave it to all of his the employees. Who does that? You know, most of the time when you get something from a corporation, they give you something that's really generic. I got the softest blanket in the world, you know, and I'm like, I'm loving this because it made me think of comfort, and that's what we need right now. And so it was really very well thought out. You know, he may not have thought about it, but his assistant, an A+ on that. Give the girl a raise or the guy a raise. Anyway, so we got popcorn kernels. This is old-fashioned popcorn kernels.
That means there's a movie in there too.
There must be, right. But I want to tell you all, this is my new thing right now of eating old-fashioned popcorn. I no longer want to eat microwave popcorn. Our microwave popcorn actually went old in our cabinet. I didn't know that, and I have the worst smell ever, and now I'm completely turned off about microwave popcorn. So I'm loving this old thing. But let me tell you what it is. They gave us a popcorn maker.
Ta-da!
That's cute.
Yep. Fandome popcorn maker. Let me see if I can turn this off so you all can see this better. So, yep, with a Superman logo on it. So I can make my own popcorn. Looks like a personal style.
Super popcorn.
Yeah, it's super popcorn. Looks like a little personal size popcorn right here. But I'm loving this. I actually forgot that this was in here because I definitely wanted some popcorn the other day. And I was like, oh, shoot, I got to go down there and make myself, you know, do the old-fashioned pop thing. So I got that. I also got some looks like a decals, DC decals,
Yeah.
Batman.
Mm-hmm.
So let me see if I can pull myself up
Yeah, go for it.
so everybody can see this. So
Ta-da!
DC decals.
Nice.
Okay. I received a pop pen of the Joker.
Oh, cool.
Really cute. Looks like a Fandome t-shirt.
Always a great thing to get a fan, something like that.
Yeah. And it's a size large, which is what I think I requested, a size large. As well as a Fandome hat.
Oh, you need that right now. Tomorrow's going to be really low in temperature.
Yeah, 14 degrees tonight. Okay. And then I got some kind of a Fandome pass.
Huh.
Got DC characters on it.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. I got a how to draw characters book.
Nice.
Supervillains and superheroes.
That's pretty good. Well, see, now, now you can get your art going.
Yeah. I got a Fandome pen.
Cool. Always like pins.
Yeah. a Wonder Woman, looks like a comic book, 80th anniversary.
Cool. 100-page, super spectacular.
Mm-hmm. A Wonder Woman World book.
Nice.
That's interesting.
I love the art.
Yep, the art looks great. Some of the drawings in it.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah.
Very beautiful drawings. And last but not least, the world of Batman.
I can't have some DC without Batman.
Yep, Batman the World.
That's pretty cool.
So I'm not sure if you could still sign up to Fandome, but if you do, I highly recommend that you can. If you do it, because you got some really good stuff if you're a fan of any of the DC content.
It's a pretty good box.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing box. I squealed like a little kid when I got it.
I haven't signed up for anything like that yet because I don't need a regular subscription to things I need to figure out where am I putting this now.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think that this was just an intro box. I'm not sure if I'll be receiving anything else from them, but it definitely won me over for someone who is a fan of DC but felt like they've been lacking. Let's just face it, they've been a little lacking in some things, but I think this just solidified my trust. It brought my patronage again. So
I feel like Fandome is them listening, because I think it's one of the things, like I was saying before, it's one of the things they're actually doing well. Is this whole fandom idea where you get a chance to interact with the fans.
Yeah. And once again, like we said, it's the fans who make the content live. That's the ones that keep it going. And they're the ones that are always going to push you to do better. They're going to push you to make sure that all details are correct. I mean,
what you just said should be a T-shirt that fans wear to conventions. It's the fans that make this live.
Yeah.
To just kind of casually remind makers of like big franchise stuff. Yeah, you can put it as a product. You're going to find an audience. Someone will probably love it. But remember
it's
that
the true fans. Yeah. Sorry, my cat is crying in the background. Sorry.
Are they trying to get in?
No. She has this little thing where she believes that she's captured one of her little toy squirrels, and so she lets everybody know that food is here. So that's what we have to literally hide those squirrels at night, because she goes around the house doing that with her in her mouth all night. Sorry about that.
That's so cool.
But anyway, I bought those little squirrels, and now I wish, but anyway, so that's it, you all. Thank you so much for hanging out with us on our first show back. We're sorry we went over a little, but an hour and a half. We try to keep it down, but this has been some really great conversation this evening.
Oh, yeah, definitely, man.
And Tom, we have to have you come back for a part 2 at some point. I mean, literally, we have to continue this conversation. We have to.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you, because we didn't even touch upon some of the stuff we do. I think we need a segment for each of the genres that we talked about, honestly.
Okay. That'd be interesting. Break it up into the whole, here's the segments. Let's go.
Yeah, let's talk about Star Trek. Let's have a whole conversation about Star Trek, which I think we should do.
Definitely.
So let's plan that maybe in the next couple of months.
Sure.
Ralph?
Oh, definitely. Sounds good.
Okay.
I love Star Trek,
Yeah, let's take a view of everything from Star Trek, the original Star Trek, to Discovery right now, and talk about, what we think about it and stuff like that, because we barely touched on it. We barely touched on all of that. And so I think that we definitely need to come back and have a discussion on that. So thank you so much, Tom, for being with us this evening. You were a pleasure, honestly.
Thanks very much.
You're very welcome. We'll be back next Monday, you all, at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time, 6:30 Central Standard Time, and that will be 4:30 Pacific Standard Time.
Yeah.
So see you next week. Thank you so much for showing up with us, and we'll see you then. All right. Have a good night, everybody. Sleep well.
Get bitten.
Yeah. Take care. Bye.